All right, folks. I'm James. Hello. We're going to get started here with our event in just a moment or two. Just wanted to give a few more people time to get in here and settled. So good. I see Matthew's coming on in and Mike and Dana out there in Arden. It's good. More and more folks coming on in here. So again, a little soft start as we get team members in here to listen in on this event. We're glad to have you on board. I'll give you a little bit of a preamble here. One, we've got about 30 minutes of conversation talking tech, and then we'll be talking some football with Tiki Barber, which is one of the reasons that I know you're also here with us. Looking forward to the conversation. If you haven't ever engaged with Tiki before, really great mind business-wise as well as sports. And so we'll dive into a couple things with him on kind of both fronts. And then we're going to encourage all of you as well. If you have questions for Tiki during this conversation, this is a meetup with him and your opportunity to talk to him. So I'll encourage you again when we get to that time to locate your raise hand button. What I'll do is I'll have you all raising your hand out there. That allows me to go through and I'll see Shane, I'll see Andy and others, and I can then go ahead and invite you to unmute. I'll also say at that time when Tiki comes on, we start talking there. If you want to unmute your video feeds, if that's an option for you all, we can do that at that time. So anyway, it looks like we've had a majority of the folks that we were planning in terms of registration, all that come on in to get started here. So I want to use your time, value that time of yours joining here and make sure we have enough to get through everything we want. So let's go ahead and get officially started here today. I do want to welcome you all to this live webinar, and we're happy to have this brought to you all by the Comport Consulting team and by HPE. This is, and you're in the right place for from the data center to the end zone. My name is James Hilliard. Glad to be hosting this conversation. Also excited to have here in about 30 minutes or so Tiki Barber with us again, former NFL running back, New York Giants, 10 years from 97 to 2007. He's also been a great radio and television personality covering football games. He's on WFAN Radio now. Continuing his work there, doing some pregame and postgame for his New York Giants. I know he's happy to be back in the fold there, so I'm sure we'll talk to him a little bit about that. Before we get to that part of the conversation, we're going to have our technology conversation. And so to that end, glad to have Joe Zenna on board, VP of Sales for Comport Consulting Corp. And also Dominic Santo is here from HPE. Dominic is a compute partner account manager. And the tech chat that we're having has to do with the fact that the last 2 years, 24 months or so, has been a bit of a wild ride for some of your organizations out there when dealing with VMware and the acquisition by Broadcom. And it's led to changes. It's led to your teams saying, do we stick it out? Do we move within the offerings that we used to have? Do we adopt new offerings from Broadcom? Do we look at something else? What we want to do today is share that. Do we look at something else? And that's VM Essentials from HPE, and talk about how Comport really works with their partners and clients and customers out there to move them forward and go through this decision making and see if this is a really good option. And maybe you looked at it early on and then you said, all right, well, we'll stick it out with what's going on. We'll see how the kind of cards fall. And now you're reevaluating. And so I think this is a good opportunity, Joe, for folks to hear from you to kick things off just for a couple minutes, but talk a little bit about how you engage with teams and how you go through the evaluation process and just work with them. And then we'll hear a little bit about the relationship, of course, you have with HPE as well. But this is not new, right? Disruption in the technology industry is not new to Comport. You've been helping teams with these types of changes for many years.
Excellent. Thank you, James. And thank everybody for jumping on this morning on this beautiful Tuesday morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Again, my name is Joe Zenna, VP of Sales at Comport, and we're very excited to be live with you, with HPE, and with the legendary Tiki Barber. I did say I'd leave my Jet jersey in the closet, and I did that. so jumping right in, I will go ahead in a few minutes here and give a brief update on Comport. I will say, to your point, James, as to why we're here today with HP's VME offering, the Broadcom VMware market disruption has wreaked havoc on the industry with nearly all customers across all segments, all verticals. And what we're seeing is customers executing on full VMware exit strategies on 5 to 7 year plans. They've made very big successes thus far with those inroads. And then we still have lots of customers that are still evaluating and exploring and testing new technologies and new architectures. But our message to customers today, we can help. regardless of where you may be in your journey, we'd love to step in and have the conversation. We're very excited about HP's VME offering, which you'll hear about in a few minutes. And as we follow up today, we'd love to, get those conversations happening in the field and dive in a bit deeper. All right, so what I'll do now is I'm going to go ahead and screen share. Hopefully there's no technical difficulties like this morning. Let me know when you can see the screen here.
We can see your screen.
Is it in full mode?
Nope.
Now it is.
Yet.
There we
Now
go.
you
That is
go.
not me. That is Tiki Barber. All right, quick agenda. Again, I'm going to give a brief high-level overview on Comport. Then we'll get to HP, and then, of course, the legendary Tiki Barber. So, jumping right in, gang. Again, my name is Joe Zinn, VP of Sales at Comport Consulting. We have been in business for 40 plus years, founded back in 1982. We've been around the block. More than half of my bench is engineering and technical focused. Our customers do enjoy that. We have north of 200 customers today. We have 5 regional offices up and down the East Coast, as well as for US Central and Minnesota. And we're serving customers across the states and several select customers on a global scale. As far as customer retention is concerned, we have an average of 16.7 years of customer retention. We have customers that have been with us for many, many years. We pride ourselves on that. What you see here is the Comport business model. We are very different in the marketplace. On the left-hand side, kind of since inception, in business for 40 years, we've been that boutique VAR, helping customers make those tough decisions around hardware and software stacks. We pride ourselves, and this is still a very big part of the business. About 10 years ago, in the middle to right hand of the screen, we've launched our cloud service provider program and our managed services practice. We have several tier 5 data centers across the states. And what this means for our customers is it gives us the flexibility, gives the customer the flexibility in how they choose IT, how they consume IT, how they procure IT. We've got 3 unique business models in how we go to market. Right here, very straightforward, right? The Comport way, the Comport advantage. We have been in business for 40 years. We have a proven track record with customers. We love sharing those stories. Results, we have a plethora of customer case studies and referenceable customers that we love. Customers talking to other customers. We enjoy that as we go to market in the field. Our people, I'm one of many. We've got a fantastic team here at Comport, from the leadership level to operations to post-sales to deliverable to our services team. We'd love to get our people engaged with your people, and commitment. As you get to know us a bit more, as you talk to our referenceable customers, you will hear that Comport is committed. That's where we pride our success in with our customers. Moving along here in short limited window, if there's anything that our customers on the line can take away today, think about the Comport circle. I'll start very briefly with cybersecurity. This is everywhere. We've got a dedicated team of cybersecurity professionals helping our customers follow the NIST and MITRE frameworks. We've got select security advisory services up and down the stack. We're doing a lot with next-gen AI email security, and all the way out to helping customers build and orchestrate, automate their SOC operations. From a managed services perspective and data centers, as I mentioned before, we have a couple of tier 5 data centers throughout the states, and we have a full catalog of as-a-service offerings, whether it be managed or hosted. Some of the more popular use cases for the customers out there could be around backup or disaster recovery services, all the way out to full infrastructure as a service. For cloud, obviously everybody is doing cloud in some way, shape, or form. We are a heavy Azure shop. I'd say that majority of our disciplines there are around cost optimization. We do have an event coming up for the local folks in New York City on October 22nd to help customers reduce their Azure spend, right? And also cloud security, also very big for us. IT infrastructure, this is where I think HP's VME offering would fit in very nicely. This is the full data center stack, from storage to compute, network to full-scale data protection strategies. And amongst HP as well, we've been a multi-decade partner in terms of a platinum partner with HPE. We have several other Gartner, IDC, Forrester-led data center solutions within that IT infrastructure bucket. Last but not least, if I didn't say AI, we'd probably all get shot. But HPC and AI is a big bench for us. We've got several data scientists, data engineers that have been doing high performance computing for many, many years. We have some select offerings, managed offerings to help customers with performance, tuning, health checks, and strategic roadmaps. within that particular arena. Those environments can get very, very complex, and we're there to help simplify those environments. Whether you guys or gals may be invested in GPFS or Luster or DDN or VAS, whatever the flavor may be, we've got a group of folks that can really help in that particular regard. I know I'm coming up on time here. I can't thank everybody enough for spending time with us this morning as we go through the HP VME offering. As I said earlier this morning when I kicked things off, we'd love to follow up in the field, shake some hands, and have the conversation and dive deeper into our practice areas. But thank you again for listening, and I'll turn it back to you in the studio, James. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Joe. And again, at the end of the event, we'll give you some contact information, a couple other things to really reach out to Joe's team. This AI thing, never heard of it. So maybe your team can have some conversations about that. I'm glad you got the AI mentioned in there. It does almost feel wrong if we don't do something in the beginning and make mentions. I wanted just technically on the team out here, a lot of folks have been joining us. We've had most of you that we've been able to mute, one or two of you, if those mics are still open, really would appreciate if you just hit the mic button, usually top right-hand corner of your Teams instant there, and just go ahead and have yourself muted as we go through. We'll invite you to unmute later on, raise hands when we get into conversation with Tiki Barber, who'll be joining us in a little bit. I wrote down some notes, Dominic, and the first thing I wrote down was wreaked havoc. That is how Joe talked about what has been going on in the space over the last couple of years because of the acquisition. Would you characterize it in the same manner?
That's what we're hearing from customers the same way. And ultimately, we just want to offer a choice, and that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, let's do so. And again, I had mentioned some people may have looked earlier, right? The announcements were made, and some people like, what do we do? But then there was a little bit of a wait and see, and I think a lot of people have been waiting and worrying, and then they've seen some pressures build upon them, and so that's why we really want to take this opportunity now to look at another choice and a very reputable choice and a proven choice. And so let's dive into VME here and take a couple minutes and have you give that kind of high level. And at the end of some of the comments that Dom has for us, we'll kind of give you a little living, breathing example of a team that has really succeeded with their journey. So with that, Dom, let me throw it to you.
Why, thank you, James. And hey, everyone, good morning. My name is Dominic Santo, one of the Compute Partner Account Managers on the East Coast for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. And ultimately, I'm going to start there is a lot of information on this slide. I know everything in that left column, a lot of you have already been dealing with. There's one number I want to point out here. Essentially, from the reports and the market research that we've got and the customers we've been speaking to, 99% of them are concerned about the business impact of VMware and Broadcom's changes on their licensing and who they partner with. So essentially, I'd say pretty much all of you out there are feeling some part of this change. And if you're not, please raise your hand. But I'm pretty sure that one of the reasons you're here is to hear about this. And Tiki Barber is pretty awesome too. I'd have to join in with that. But essentially, I want to just start the conversation. Comport here is to help guide you through this entire process. So I know that it's going to be daunting. It's something that, both you and I've been in the IT industry since the early 2000s. Once the world didn't blow up, when January 2000 happened and those dates changed, I've been actively in this same environment with you all working through this. So that said, what I want to point out is HP is offering a alternative. We didn't just invent this last year when we were talking about it. We purchased a company, Morpheus Data. We've been using their hybrid cloud platform to run a lot of our GreenLake solutions. And it just made sense because they work with every cloud and pretty much every hypervisor and platform. As we are a hybrid cloud company, the world is hybrid. Why would we not? So with that, they had been working on, and their platform was based on MVM, which is essentially KVM. It is the Linux kernel version of the hypervisor. That came out in the early 2000s. So while you may hear HPE VM Essentials, as being a relatively new product, the foundation that it's built on has been around for a very long time. Linux has been around for a very long time. There's a lot of other platforms and other vendors that have been using this. There's other server vendors that have also have their own version of KVM hypervisor. So know that it's supported. If anything does come up, HPE is your first call. You don't have to call anybody else. We're here to support you. So with that, there is plenty of availability features, especially if you're using the HPE Alletra MP, as well as high availability built into that hypervisor. And another thing that I really want to point out, this is not an HPE play for everything. We're that hybrid cloud company. We give you choice and options throughout your entire stack, okay? So not only can you bring Dell PowerEdge servers or their storage, if you have a NetApp arrays, if you have Pure arrays already on site, you just refreshed that last year, and maybe your servers need to be refreshed. This is an incredible opportunity to expand the options you have around your hypervisor. You don't have to ditch VMware right now. Your latest refresh cycle is a great opportunity to move workloads over, to test some of the more critical workloads, because it doesn't matter whether you're moving from VMware to HPE VM Essentials, or you're moving from VMware to Nutanix, AHV, or Hyper-V, or executive. You're always going to test those workloads before you move that into production. Nothing I'm saying here is strange or out of the ordinary, but we use this latest VMware refresh cycle. You're probably on your toes, back to the wall. You have to possibly do that refresh, maybe a 1-year renewal, because that renewal is due in the next 3 months. You have a whole nother year to then solidify all your options. And this is definitely something Comport and HPE can help you with. Now, when you're considering that, you may be looking at your current VMware bill and going, man, I sure do got a lot of cores. And one thing to consider is your current VMware infrastructure has a cost tied to it. It's in, per 16 cores, and those add up. VM Essentials is licensed based on your socket, how many sockets you're going to be utilizing, okay? So it doesn't matter how many cores. So in the old days, we used to go, okay, to be license efficient, we're gonna have 1 or 2 CPUs, but we're kind of gonna go with the max gigahertz processors and 16 cores, where we play some kind of Tetris game on, how we can make licensing work with the hardware we wanna get. That's no longer the case with HPE ProAlliance and VM Essentials. If you're just doing look at that, trying to mush me along. I just want to hit this real quick. Now that you don't have to worry about, the licensing exponentially getting more expensive with your cores, you can use a latest processor, a 1-socket box with 64 or 92 or 128 cores and 1.5 terabytes of RAM. You're not taxed on the RAM, and use and kind of consolidate that entire rack down to maybe 6 servers, maybe 10 servers. None of us would take it down to 2 or 1 because that doesn't make a lot of sense. But what you're going to do, you're going to free up that rack space, that power, that cooling, to bring on other workloads. Have you been trying to do AI and not have the power in your data center to be able to even try it? This is a great opportunity to create that space to reduce your reliance on Broadcom all at the same time. So with that, you're wondering, hey, what can I move to VM Essentials? Again, KVM has been around for a very long time. There's a lot of things that run every day. There's a lot of services you use in your daily life, both in personal and business, that's running on KVM out there, okay? Linux runs a majority of the world. So think about web servers, application servers, file servers, databases that we use. A lot of these things run on KVM and essentially VM Essentials already. So you can save that. 80% of your workloads could move right away. Of course, you'd still want to test them out just to be sure. And what I want to point out, these logos here in the center of the screen, I'm not just saying this is the stuff that works. This is the stuff that has been certified. And I know since you guys are running your, production workloads, you don't want Dominic just to tell you it's going to work. You want to wait for things that are certified. So essentially, I'll let you know that all of the major applications out there, HPE is working with those software vendors now to certify that. And a lot of those, we have to wait on the software vendor. So it's not a fact that, maybe this, that, or the other that you're using, doesn't have a logo here right now. It's on its way. And we're kind of waiting as fast as that particular vendor is going to, let us go. So with that, what is the next question that you're going to have on your mind? What about all that stuff I have running on VMware today? We have solutions for that. Now, what I want you to keep in mind is we're moving from a different platform. VMware has been a hypervisor for a long time. It has its own tools, has its own drivers, and now you will be working and moving those data stores, those virtual machines, those templates to KVM. So to do that, we have batch migration that's built into VM Essentials now. You create a plan. One thing that I kind of want to point out here as well, this interface that you see, this is Morpheus Enterprise. VM Essentials is a version of Morpheus Enterprise, a multi-cloud platform, hybrid cloud platform, VM vending machine software that we are giving you that supports VMware and VM Essentials at the same time. So you may choose to run things in parallel. You can manage it all from one interface. It's going to be this interface right here. So you create a plan. Any good operation starts with a plan, is what Hannibal from the A-Team always said. Select the virtual machines that you want to move. You're going to map the resources. What, virtual networks you have in your current virtual machines, which ones in your new KVM cloud structure in VM Essentials do you want to migrate those over? And then you save it. Okay, so as that plan is saved, you now have the opportunity to wait until you have a maintenance window. We recommend, because this takes as long as the size of the virtual machines, because they are copied over, converted, and then updated with KVM tools in place of VMware tools. So we then execute the plan when you're ready. It powers down those virtual machines, so it has a acquiesce state. We then export those templates into KVM and then turn them on. And then we don't do anything with your prior VMware, so that you can choose whether or not you want to migrate that immediately, and turn those back on or off. That's completely up to you. Okay, so we're making it as easy as we can. The great news here is not only is it easy, you have Comport as a partner that's trained in this and can handhold you every step of the way to make sure your migration goes successfully, and you could administer this and learn these tools, which are pretty easy, menu-driven type scenarios, and you can go from there. Now, that sounds great, but I want to kind of bring it all together with a customer success story we have. So the environment they had before was a other guy's traditional HCI host. They had the storage and the compute together. They had a bunch of nodes. And, whether it was our HCI solution or theirs, I'll be honest, days ago, it wasn't as efficient. So for this particular solution, it took up almost a whole rack. It had straight VMware, so it was a lot of licenses, and we ran a cloud physics. So the partner ran a cloud physics. We, okay, you're not using everything. Another thing that's totally crazy, and I've seen this myself because I've done cloud physics. I come from a solution architect background. did you realize that there is a lot of customers who are paying for VMware's licensing that they're not using, right? They just, you know, renew it, and it's just kind of one of those things. And then as hosts are decommissioned, things are moved around with, distributed resource scheduling, all the various gears that are constantly moving inside your IT environment. You don't realize it until you start digging through the haystack looking for those license needles that, hey, we actually have licenses that are unallocated. That also plays into savings you can have here. So we moved them to Private Cloud Business Edition. We were calling it disaggregated HCI, essentially the category that we created. It's the ease of managing that entire stack in one place, but you have the ability to add compute and upgrade your storage without tying those two together. So because of the efficiencies that creates, the efficiencies of newer hardware creates, we were able to not only reduce their cluster size to 6 hosts, give them 2 arrays, which now they have separate hardware-based performant MP Electra arrays that are replicating, and store one's backup appliances. So you have a way better solution with specialized components using less rack space. You're again using less power and cooling. A lot of people don't take into account, they're like, oh, I got all this space in my rack. And then, you buy one of these monster NVIDIA things that Comport designs for you. And of course, Comport would say, hey, you don't have enough plugs in your back. But, you put it in, you go, oh, we don't have enough juice for it. The modernization you can do by upgrading your hardware and VM Essentials tied together can give you that breathing room for it. So with that, we've saved this credit union money. We've made their jobs easier. We're made their IT easier with backup appliances and arrays that replicate each other. It was just a win-win-win situation for everybody involved. So with that, that's all I have for you guys. It explains itself. Back to you, James.
I appreciate it, Dom. You see Dom's contact information up there. Again, we'll give you contact information at the end so you can connect with the Comport team, and again, they can engage with and bring on members from HPE and evaluate and talk about what your needs are and set a route forward. So I appreciate it, Dom. Thank you so much on that. With that, as I had told you all, we do have our special guest. I saw he joined us just a few minutes ago. Tiki Barber is with us. We're glad to have him on board. Good to reconnect with you, sir. It's been a while since you and I have chatted, but good to see you again. Appreciate your time.
Likewise. I'm glad to be here with you guys.
We gave some intro to you earlier on, but just a reminder to folks who've come on here. 3-time Pro Bowler. He's in the New York Giants Ring of Honor out there. Offensive Player of the Year in '96 in the ACC during his college days. So let me start with a football question. Then we'll go into some business, then we'll come back to football. You tell us right now, where are your Giants going to end up by the end of the season? We're a third of the way through. Where are they going to be?
It depends on if you want to count those first couple of games when Jackson Dart wasn't our quarterback. We're starting a new era right now with Jackson Dart over the last 3 games, and they're 2-1. Look, I think they are still figuring out who they are, especially offensively, with Malik Neighbors going down with an ACL injury, and he's done for the year. And I guess there's some options internally, including little Jordan Humphrey, who had a big game last week, and maybe even Jalen Hyatt. But I think there will be fits and starts, but this team is going to win a lot more than people expected coming into this year because of what Jackson Dart brings and Cam Scatteraboo. And I think probably more importantly, how aggressive the defense has been. And it's been dominant in a couple of these games once they started to find their way. And so I think they are probably a 6-7 win team or so. But at least they'll be in the conversation in December. I think one of the worst things that I've had to watch over the last 5 or 6 years is watching this team play non-competitive football in the months of November and December. That's either injuries or incompetence. This year feels different, and so I'm somewhat excited about it.
All right. Well, good. And I know that you're enjoying your role back with the team on pregame and postgame.
Right.
we'll come back to that. We'll add that on the kind of the football chat a little bit. I want to just reset us to really what we've been talking about here today on our technology side of things is major changes in the technology space. And a couple of years ago, Broadcom buying VMware, and that just made a lot of individuals and organizations had to reevaluate things. They had to say, are we sticking with what we've known? How long do we stick with it? Do we make a change? So I want to ask you, let's start kind of football mentality, but you also have been successful in business. So I want to parlay that there as well. When you got a new coach, whether it was a running backs coach, whether it was the head coach, when you got someone new that was coming in, where did your original mindset go? And then how did you adapt so that you could see how was this going to work for Tiki, and could you participate in this new system?
Yeah, I can put this in a couple of contexts. One, football, but another business as well. But so this happened to me a couple of times. We had a couple of different running back coaches over my career, but the biggest one was when Jim Fossil got fired and Tom Coughlin became our head coach. Now, anyone who knows the history of Tom Coughlin, he is a pain in the butt, stickler to details. We literally, and I'm not even joking, had a 45-minute meeting on how to put our socks on correctly so that we wouldn't get blisters, because blisters cause you to miss practice time and cause you to potentially miss games if it turns into something worse. I mean, something you never even thought about worrying about, but you ultimately, you bought into what he was trying to teach. But the first thing he said to me was, I don't care how good you are, because I was good leading up to him becoming our head coach. If you keep fumbling, if you keep being a liability offensively, you're not going to play. And so it became this new methodology that I had to learn with my running back coach, Gerald Ingram, who said, first thing, how strong are you? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I work out, but I don't know. And so we went and we got tested, and he's like, oh, you're weak in here. You're weak in your shoulders, plexus, your biceps got to get stronger. And so I went about this process of getting stronger. And then he said, now we got to get to the mechanics. How do you mechanically carry a football? Anybody who's played football, when you were young, you learned to carry it like this, make a pocket, carry it like this. But in actuality, that's wrong, because it leaves the ball exposed. So he made me turn the ball vertical, right, up and down. So I'd carry the ball up and down right under my chin so that it could my elbow would never get away from my shoulder, and went through contact, covering everything up. And before you know it, this issue that I didn't realize was an issue got solved. And it was all because a new methodology, and it was physics, right? It was just a new physical way of carrying the football prevented me from exposing it. And ultimately, I had the best 3 years of my career with this new direction, put my socks on correctly and never fumbled. And so it worked. But we kind of had this issue in it's really my second company, but the one that I spent the most time with, Enthusio, when we created a marketplace. We called it a tech solution, but it was really just a marketplace to shop online for talent, whether that was to go play a pickup basketball game or go to a lunch or a dinner or have a speaking engagement. And COVID occurred. And once COVID hit, we were dead. We were doing a lot of live events. I mean, all of our events basically were live and in person. And when that went away, we were stuck without a solution. And we all know what happened. This happened. Zoom happened. And it forced us to rethink how we were going about booking talent. And so instead of let's have a 50 or 100 person event to just hang out with Lawrence Taylor, it became, how can we find talent, whether that be an athlete or businessman or someone in the tech space, and create these type of virtual interactions. And because of that, we lowered our margins, obviously, because we weren't making these big margins on some of the deals that we were doing, but we were able to replicate them significantly. And our business changed, and it's what led to us getting acquired about 2.5 years after that. And so I think the lesson that I learned from football that also applies to business is that you might think where you're going or how you're going to be successful, but circumstances are going to dictate how you actually are going to be successful, and can you adapt to it? And when you do, success is right there for you. You just have to be willing to open your eyes and look at a different way of going about business.
Folks, what I want to encourage for all of you is if you do have a question, can do a couple things. If you don't want to say anything and you want me to verbalize it, you can go to the chat and go ahead and type that in the chat, and then I'll do my best to translate and get it out there, Tiki. If you do have a question for him, then hit the raise your hand button, then I can scroll through the participant list and we can invite you to unmute and all that. But for now, so the raise hand, wait till I call on you, and then we can manage the muting and unmuting. I want to talk a little bit about mindset around change, and I'll just admit that sometimes I don't want to change. I like my way. It's the way that it has been. I think it's the best way. I'm just going to assume that you have had that too, because you were and excelled in your roles and everything. What practical ways do you approach change? What I've learned in my years, and you and I are about the same age, I think I got a year on you. I've learned to actually just slow things down a little bit, really just stop, remove myself a little bit and take some time. Now in the IT world, we've got so many changes going on in business that I know that a lot of these folks that are on with us, they don't have time to stop and change because such, veracity of the change is coming at them. But I think it's important. Stop, slow down a little bit, evaluate, look internally to see if you're the one that really does need some of that change. How do you go about dealing with some of that?
Yeah, so it's a fun question for me because you guys know what I do now. I work on WFAN. I'm an afternoon drive host from 2 to 6:30 p.m. Plug intended here, the free Odyssey app if you don't live locally. But it's one of those jobs where your job is to be entertaining. It's to talk. It's to give an opinion. I'm not really the hot take guy. I'm more of a practical host. So I'm going to tell you how I view it from my perspective as an athlete. And if it gets in the football, maybe even baseball sometimes, I'll break it down for you. This is why this happened. This is what I think needs to happen, etc. And so over 4.5 hours, right? That in an individual block, say 5 to 10 minutes, that's interesting. But if you're listening to that for, I don't know, 30 minutes or 45 minutes, it can become redundant and it can become, all right, I'm gonna go listen to music instead. And so I think the way that we've adjusted to change is realizing that there are people, and in this case, there are younger millennials that are working over at Odyssey who are suggesting things to us, things that I wouldn't even think about. I mean, I studied MIS at UVA. I was database design and programming. I was all of this what you're talking about. It was the profession I wanted to go into, and the football got in the way. And so I think early in my life, professional life, I was an early adopter, right? I was, all right, let's try this new technology. Let's do this. But as I've gotten older, and I'm like you, I'm 50 now, I'm not quite a Luddite, but I've become slow to adopt. And once I've seen AI just explode in every sphere, business and technology, obviously, in sports and social media, it's everywhere. And I'm not fearful of it, but I'm distrustful of it. But we got a suggestion from Tom Izzo, not the head coach, but he has the same name as Michigan State's head coach. He works in our promotions department, and he said, "I want to try something. We have this AI voice that we can create, and we tried this with a previous host. It didn't really sound right, but I tried it with your voice, and it sounds exactly like you." And so I was like, all right, let me hear it. And so he played this little sample, this digital AI voice. He wrote the script. It was nonsense, but it sounded exactly like me. And so what we ended up doing, instead of me talking all the time, we created a new character for our show, and we call him Bad Tiki. And so Bad Tiki, that says everything that I don't want to say, like things that I would think and I would say behind the scenes and be like, man, that dude was an ass. Like, screw him, blah, blah, blah. I hate this guy. I would never say it, right? But we created this new character that AI Tiki would say, Bad Tiki would say. And so we rolled this thing out about 1.5 years ago, and it was hilarious. I mean, we don't get the script beforehand, so it's just written. And so we're reacting in real time. And we're dying laughing as this thing is going on. And so, like, just because I was distrustful of that new technology didn't mean that it couldn't create some depth for our show. And as a result, we've been able to play off almost anything. And so last year, Bad Tiki created, I don't know, like 100 different AIs, including AI Mayor Adams, AI Shador Sanders, AI Dion, all these different AIs. And at the end of the year, he got arrested for creating too many illegal AIs. And so we're able to play on like all of these different like tropes that exist in society and just have fun with it. And it's added some depth to our, all right, let's just talk X's and O's in our show. And so we end up having fun. I think it provides a layer to our show, but it's adapting to something or adjusting to something or embracing a new technology that as a 50-year-old, it's just kind of like, that's not for me. That, at least save that for my kids. Like my 23-year-old, he wants to deal with that stuff. I don't want to deal with that stuff. But it turned out to be, it's a great piece of our show now.
Earlier, I love it. Here's a question. Has Bad Tiki ever sent messages or talked to Rondé?
See, that's the next swerve. That's the next swerve, is how do we get a bad Rondé who is actually real Rondé, because he's Bizarro Tiki, if that makes sense.
Love it. Hey, we got a couple hands raised here. I'm just going to go in order that I saw them up. David Garrity. David, you're with us. It looks like you unmuted. What's your question for Tiki?
First of all, I'm just wondering when we're going to get bad Joe Zinna on AI for some of our calls. But, Tiki, we're talking about kind of generational change in technology and, have you go back on the Wayback Machine to your days as a Cavalier. I think one of the generational changes in football, in particular college sports across the board, is a combination of NIL and the transfer portal.
Right.
You're the you've just been dubbed commissioner of college football. What are 3 things that you would do to both protect and enhance college football moving forward? By the way, I graduated from Notre Dame the same year you did Virginia.
Oh, so, nice.
So I saw you play
in
a lot
that same category as I am, Dave. I think number one, I would make, look, college sports has become professional sports. It's at least for the revenue sports. I'm not talking about the Olympic sports. Those are a completely different scenario. God bless the volleyball players, the track and field athletes who go get NIL deals, and it helps them train to try to, I don't know, make the Olympics or do something in that regard. They're not making the millions of dollars that the basketball and football players are making, even some of these baseball players. But the first thing I would do would be to make the contract binding. So when you sign a scholarship with a school, it should become a binding contract. And if you break it, then that NIL deal that you sign with that school obviously has to break instead. And I would force the NIL deal not to be able to travel with you. So it goes with one school and it stays with one school, because it will then disincentivize guys from failing as freshmen to break the starting lineup and then quitting, right? I didn't play for 2 years at UVA. I didn't really get a chance to be a starter until my 3rd season there. And I think I was better for it. I ended up having a really good college career and and it projected me into the NFL. And so that's number one. I think number two, I would limit the transfers to 2 instead of unlimited. I've been calling some college games over the years, and I'm baffled when I see these guys still in college and they're 24 years old. And I think we have this historically. We have this this view of what a college student athlete is, that he goes and plays a game, and after the game, he's just like, "Oh man, that was a great game." And you're on campus, and you're having a beer with your buddies. It's not that, right? That's what it was when I was there, David. That's what it was when you were there at Notre Dame. Now it's become, I'm gonna go get in my, I don't know, Mercedes Benz. I'm gonna go isolate somewhere, and the college feel has died, and for the athlete, and I hate that, because so much of who I became as a person, forget an athlete, as a person, happened because of the collegiate experience, which I think a lot of 18 to 22-year-olds are now losing. As far as the third one, it'd be hard. I think so much is right about college football, yet so much is wrong. because of all the movement around, and the rivalries have disappeared. It used to be that rivalries were what made college football. Now I don't think you see those anymore. I think actually the last one I would do would be expand the college football playoff to 16 teams as opposed to 12, and get rid of the bye. Giving a bye makes it professional, like what you see in the NFL or in college or in the NBA. Get rid of the bye and just make them play football. And I love the fact that Indiana is number 3. I love the fact that my Cavaliers, that haven't been in the top 25 since I was there, basically, are 19. Right? It just gives an opportunity for more schools to be involved.
I appreciate the question, David. Abasi, I see your hand up there, so I'll invite you to unmute your line there. Looks like you did. What's your question for Tiki today?
Oh, I have a few questions. I'll start with this one. Who has tackled you to the point where you still remember it now?
Oh man, that's an easy one. His kid is now playing for the team that I hated, the Philadelphia Eagles. Jeremiah Trotter. If you guys remember him, Jeremiah Trotter was a middle linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles, and that dude was just heavy as hell. Just heavy, like thick. You ever met those people that are just, you could look at their ass and be like, oh man, that dude is thick. That was Jeremiah Trotter. And while he didn't know all of our plays, like he would just instinctual, but he would guess because we played each other so often. He would guess, like he'd read and recognize. He would guess, and if he guessed right, it hurt. And he's the reason I retired in 2006. After that, we played them in week 3 or 4. I can't remember. It was early in the season. And I said, dude, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to have a good season this year, but this is it. I can't take getting hit this much.
Are you guys like colleagues or friends now after?
Oh yeah. Okay. And again, I called a game last year, and his son is now a linebacker for the Eagles. And so I saw him. He's big as hell. Jeremiah Trot, the older Trot, is big now. And it was good to catch up with him.
Last thing, and you buried my league talking about Philadelphia. I was actually at Thursday Night Football at the game. And being that the Phillies lost as well, do you agree that you can only spell Philly with 2 L's?
Oh, you should add 3 because didn't the Flyers lose too? Look, it's funny going into that game last Thursday night. You can tell something was off about the Eagles. Now they have a very good team. They win in spite of some of their attrition that's catching up with them. I mean, Lane Johnson's 35 years old. Landon Dickinson was hurt in this game. They lost Mekhi Becton, and in the run game, Jordan Mailata, who's their best offensive lineman as a left tackle, he's been struggling. So something is like just a little bit off, and all it took was some aggression on the Giants' part, which we haven't had in forever, to get them on the ropes a little bit. So, I mean, they'll bounce back because they're a good team, but that was comforting to see a Giants-Eagles rivalry not be so one-sided, because it's been that way for a decade.
I took a lot of help from my buddies that were texting me and hitting me out because I'm an Eagles guy and have been since I was 8. You and I have talked about this before, and but yeah, it was at least still good. And again, the Giants look, and the Giants, what they look like they have now, and maybe this parlays into another question again, folks. If you have questions, get your hand up. But there's it goes beyond just mentality and belief. And you were saying that you really believe that some good times are ahead for them. But it seems like there's a mentality. I also believe that you have to put in the dedicated work to it. You can't just say, hey, this is going to be our year.
Right.
That always falls flat. But it's the dedication. What are some things that you've seen about really good teams, whether they've been the business teams you've worked with,
right,
or the football teams, the broadcast teams, where dedication to the hard work, even if you don't want to do it, is so important? It ties to business every single day.
Oh, it absolutely does. And this is a good parallel for some of my experiences as well, or at least observations and then experiences. So, one of the things that we struggled with when we first started Thusio was the branding of our product. Like, what are we? And so we created, and for those who don't know, Thusio was a marketplace where you could engage with an athlete, mostly retired, but ultimately it became current athletes as well, and do whatever you wanted to do with them, whether it was play games with them or invite them out to a corporate event. Eventually, we put in a SaaS product that allowed brands to use social media and other influence platforms to market specific events. That became Julius. It was a separate company. But when we first started, we didn't know what we wanted to be. And we were just kind of servicing the need of former athletes like me who were in a community, but kind of lost in the sphere of how to engage with the corporate environment. And so we created the solution. The problem was when people heard about it, they labeled it like rent an athlete. And that's not what we wanted, right? It just, that becomes, it cheapens it in some way. And so what we ended up having to do was find out what the customer actually wanted. So instead of, having these rent an athlete type events, we went to customers and asked them, how would you use us? And our big break came when Ernst & Young, when the Super Bowl came to New York City. We all remember that one, the Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks. They didn't want to spend whatever the hundreds of thousands of dollars was on the sponsorship package for MetLife Stadium, or I think it might have, it was MetLife Stadium. They instead wanted to get all of their clients in their offices. Like they couldn't get their clients to come to their offices. And so they hired us to figure out a way to do that. And so we ended up putting on 4 or 5 events that was with Joe Montana and, John Elway, like all these legends would come to Ernst & Young's facility or their offices and host these events. And so Thusio evolved from, get this one athlete to let's entertain a group. And so we pivoted by listening to what our client wanted to do. I think the same thing happens in sports all the time. When I look at what the Giants wanted to do when Dave's first got there, they won 9 games, and everybody for all of a sudden said, well, they can win. But it took them off of their original plan. Anytime a new system takes over, just the same with Coughlin, like it was with us in 2004, there is a necessary strip down that needs to happen. I think the Giants got fooled by year 1 of Dave's when he won Coach of the Year to thinking, all right, we're not that far away from being a viable competitor. And that strip down that was necessary never happened. And as a result, those next 2 years, you just get one injury or two major injuries, Andrew Thomas being one, Daniel Jones being another, Saquon leaving. All of a sudden, you're a shell of what you thought you were, and you have no reserves coming because you didn't spend the time rebuilding. And so I think being able to, if you get knocked off your plan, you have to pivot. And the Giants didn't do it. And it set them back a couple of years. Now they're finally rebuilding the right way. And I think you're starting to see the slow results.
In hearing what you were saying about listening, right, to who is out there and what they really want. That's something I know about Joe and the Comport team, right? That's
Right.
what they do when they engage with their customers, is that early long-term listening. And then it's once they've gathered enough information, then they can start laying out that plan. Say, okay, well, based on what you're saying here, not just this cookie cutter, here's a plan. Right. This is going to take you to success. You really do have to listen. It's something that has to be so customized. Tom, I got Tom D out there. If you want to go ahead and unmute Tom, looks like you did. You're on with Tiki.
Yeah. How's it going, Tiki? Long time Giants fan. Definitely loved you. Loved watching you growing up and everything. But we're flipping the script. It's 2025. Take us through the Cam Scatterbo experience. Just to talk a little bit about it. How much have you been involved with him personally, and just the energy he's bringing?
Yeah, only a little bit, but I think I need to do more, and I'll explain to you in a minute. So. You guys remember, Tom, you remember as a Giant fan, at the end of my career, I had a couple of knuckleheads that were behind me, Brandon Jacobs and Derek Ward. And Brandon Jacobs, for those who don't know who he is, he's a 6'5", 250-pound running back. He's just massive human being. And he was getting a little bit of playing time at the end of my career, but he would always just try to truck people. Like as soon as he would see somebody, he'd be like, all right, here I go. And his head would go down and he'd just drive through contact. And I remember saying to him, because once I knew that I was ready to retire, I'm like, BJ, you're about to be the man. Being the man is harder than you think it is. And I promise you, you're not going to make it if you keep trucking everybody. And your mentality has to change. Some of them are necessary. Like if you want to send a message, go ahead, do it, but don't do it 10 plays in a row. And so he learned, and ultimately he had a 9-year career and is the Giants' all-time leader in touchdowns, because he pirated all of my touchdowns. Once I got to the 3-yard line, he'd come in and grind those last couple yards away. But it was a lesson that I was able to pass on to him, because I was a vet and I was at the end of my career and he was a young buck coming up. And Derek Ward was the same way. With Cam, his running back room is very young. I mean, it's Devin Singletary, who has not really ever been an every down back. He's a good football player, but never been that like 300, 400 carry a year guy. And Tyrone Tracy, who's only in his 3rd year, basically as a running back, and his 2nd with the New York Giants. And what I see with Cam is a lot of what I see with Brandon. Now, he's not the same size. I mean, Cam is shorter than me, but he's thick. He's like 220. And you see it when you see him run. Like, he puts his head into everything. And I worry that, like, inviting that contact every single play is going to wear on him. After the Chargers game, a game that I was at, I saw him like after the game, and he was just in one of these like, like exhausted. And it was his first real game of getting all the carries, because Tracy had hurt his shoulder. And I was like, man, that kid is not going to make it through week 10, much less 8 more weeks after that. And so I haven't been over it since probably week 2. But I think I need to get over there and just have a little sit down with him, put my arm around his shoulder and be like, kid, dude, I love you. Our fan base is going to adore you because of how you play. But you got to be smart with how many hits you take in a game. It's cumulative. And especially when we talk about head trauma, which has become a very serious issue in this league. And obviously, everybody, if you saw last week, Dave is probably going to get fined for trying to interrupt that concussion protocol blue tent situation with Jackson Dart. It's cumulative. The more you take, the more susceptible you become. And so he needs to get that sage vet advice. And there really isn't anyone in that room right now, other than the running back coach, Ladell Betts, who some of you guys might remember from his Redskins days, or Washington, whatever they are now, Commanders days.
Gotcha. Hey, no, good insight. And yeah, get over there. Slow down a little, young buck, so we can enjoy it, and he can enjoy himself for a period of time. James, we're in the final moments or so here, but James, I want to give you a chance. Last guy with the hand raised up there, James M., if you want to go ahead. Good. Unmuted. And what's your thoughts, questions?
Hey, what's going on, Tiki? Also a lifelong Giants fan, so appreciated watching you as a kid. But you mentioned earlier that football kind of interrupted, if that was the right word, your studies and like your career. So was that like just a surprise to make it to the NFL, and football was just kind of carrying you through college?
Yeah, so it's such an interesting story, because I have an identical twin, and my brother, as a redshirt freshman, because he redshirted his first year, he tore up his elbow, and his first year he redshirted, and so immediately his redshirt freshman year, he was ACC Rookie of the Year. He led the nation in interceptions. It was like, dude, he was on his way. And I was a bit player, return kicks. I didn't really do much. And going into my 3rd year, I didn't have an opportunity because Kevin Brooks was a starting running back. He hurt his hamstring right before we played Michigan in the Pigskin Classic, which was the first game of the season. And I ended up starting that game and rushed for 180 yards and had an 80-yard touchdown. And so I was on my way. And that year we played Texas. We lost on the last play of the game. I had a big day. We beat Florida State that season in 1995, which was 30 years ago. And we reprised that a couple of weeks ago because we beat Florida State again, Virginia, in our throwback uniforms. Not that I'm bragging, wahoo wah. But so I didn't find my path towards the league until I was well into my 3rd year at UVA. In the interim, I went to school to be an engineer. I wanted to be an astronaut. I was a Challenger kid. I was 11 years old when the Challenger exploded, and everybody was going to space camps. We couldn't afford it. And so my mom was always like, all right, well, then just be an astronaut. I'm like, all right, I'll be an astronaut. And so I started to love space. And until this day, I still love space. Neil deGrasse Tyson Star Talks is on repeat on my podcast list. And so I went to UVA to get an engineering degree. But when I got to UVA, in the engineering program, I got exposed to computers for the first time, and I was taken. I was just obsessed with programming. And so I got out of the E-school and went to the commerce school, the business school at UVA, and studied MIS and learned how to program in C++ and COBOL and BASIC and all these different these programming languages that were just exciting to me. And so you got to remember, James, when I was graduating, around graduation, this was 1996, 97, we were obsessed. And you'll remember this, James. We were obsessed with Y2K. Obsessed. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? The best programmers are going to be necessary because all these systems are built on these antiquated platforms, and they simply have 2 spots for date. And so, what are you going to do, right? And so, it became this like solution. It was the early stages of the internet, and you just knew that there were millionaires waiting to be born from the tech world. And that was me. Like, I was in that space, and I mean, I wanted to work for Oracle or Microsoft or one of these big, companies that were on the cutting edge of technology. And then, I mean, literally, football got in the way because I was the best running back in the ACC. Then the next year, as James introduced me as, I was ACC Player of the Year. Then I get drafted in the second round, and it was awesome because it's football. It was like my dream, but it kind of wasn't my dream. So I had a great career, and I don't regret it at all. But I often think, man, what would have happened if I would have just stayed in that tech lane? You know what I mean? And early, what would have happened? And I still see some of my friends who've gone into that space and have done unbelievably well. You know, they're 50 years old and multimillionaires, and it's just like, I don't know, so it got in the way, but it was a great interruption, if that makes sense.
Oh, and that's that's a very personal insight, and I appreciate, and James, great question out there to wrap us up on today's chat. I really do appreciate it, Tiki. I think it helped tie everything together that we had talked about on the tech side of things, and with you, and just the attitudes towards change and how you can lean into it and be disciplined, and sometimes you do need to pace yourself a little bit and all that type of stuff. So I do appreciate all of that. Here's the thing that I did promise to our audience. I said there was some more information out there, a couple blog posts and some stuff about HPE VM Essentials. So you can head on to info.comport.com and then /HPE VM Essentials. And we'll be sending some follow-up emails that'll get in contact with y'all. It'll have some of that contact information as well. But I encourage you to reach out to the Comport team. They'll be able to get you going on your path if you're going to make that change over to HPE, and they'll bring in the right resources to work with you, really make it a team effort to drive towards that end zone, as we had mentioned at our title and all. So with that, do appreciate everybody for taking time to join us for this event. Again, Tiki, appreciate all your insights here. It was really a pleasure to catch up with you again, sir.
Likewise, James. Be good, brother.
All right, you too. And folks, with that, we'll wrap things up, and we do look forward to talking to you all down the road.
Thank you.
Have a good one, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.